Discuss this further with political analyst Sanusha Naidu. Good to have you with us, Sanusha. So when Jacob Zuma addressed the media a little earlier on, I mean, I think he was setting up the stage for not handing himself over. He says that he wants justice, so do we. What do you think he achieved today?
Good evening, Jane, and good evening to the viewers. I think what Mr. Jacob Zuma achieved today was to demonstrate how much more obstinate he's going to be in terms of this whole legal battle. Even listening to the tone and the way in which that press conference unveiled itself, it was quite interesting to note that at points, he was jovial, but at points he pushed back. He was very adamant, I think, in terms of the fact that in his eyes, he's done no wrong. The judicial system is compromised, that there's been the sense that the judiciary has not given him a fair hearing, and that he's talking about very important issues regarding his own kind of relationship to the judiciary and how the judiciary is treating him. I think what was also very interesting about that press briefing was the fact that he made some very important, if not interesting, statements about drawing analogies with the apartheid state, talking about the death sentence and talking about things that I think at times, if you really want to think about it more critically and unpack it and interrogate it, it actually says to me that Mr. Jacob Zuma does not want to have his day in court. He does not want to go to prison. I always, as I was listening to it, I actually asked myself, if the punitive action was a suspended sentence, or if the action was a suspended sentence and the constitutional court justices said in their majority ruling that he has to go and appear before the Zondo Commission, and if they even went to the extent, and I'm just drawing an analogy, if they went to the extent of saying, well, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, maybe recuse yourself, let Mr. Zuma come there, would we still see an obstinate Mr. Zuma? Because I don't think he wants to be appearing before the Zondo Commission or any commission to basically tell what he feels that is his story or evidence around state capture.
I mean, he's really playing us, isn't he? And, I just want to read this comment. It's from Richard Calland. He was just quoting Zuma's spin doctor. He's blaming the media for breaking COVID regulations, says that Zuma's not wearing a mask for confidential medical reasons. I mean, you really, going back to that, you really feel as though we are being played here as fools. Do you think Jacob Zuma really believes what he's saying? Does he really believe that he's been wronged? Does he really believe that the justice system is against him, or is he just being wily?
I think it's more about, I'm Jacob Zuma, so how do you come after me? I think that's what it is. I think it's more about the fact that, here I am, I'm the guy that, made these things, made particular issues happen. I mean, I was the broker for the tensions in KwaZulu-Natal. I played my role in the liberation struggle. So, are you saying that now I'm not basically somebody that needs to be respected, that the law is essentially above me? Am I not necessarily somebody that needs to be recognized? And I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to what we see as a syndrome in many parts of post-liberation struggle societies of big man politics and the personality that goes within that space in terms of what we're seeing today. I mean, there's a point in that press briefing, Jane, where he says, I recognize that I was in contempt of court. I mean, he acknowledges that to a certain extent he did break the law. But at the same time, he feels that all of this is basically, as he was talking in the afternoon on the stage outside in Kanjla, where he was talking about he smells a political or a conspiracy. I mean, it's all that language that is very highly testosterone-driven. And even looking at that whole environment and the feelings and the way it all kind of unearthed itself, it just tells you that, how dare you come after me?
And how dare the police go after his supporters? I mean, we've just seen them in a super spreader event and the police are standing by not doing anything. I guess the next stage now really is a test of the police and how they're going to play it out if he doesn't hand himself over.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it all hinges on the urgent application that the Pietermaritzburg High Court has to hear on Tuesday. That was emphasized a lot in the press briefing that they gave by Advocate Dalian Poe. And I think to put it in context as well is, what does this mean? Because if they do succeed, or if they don't succeed, what does this mean for the police as well? Because they then have another mammoth task on their hand. I mean, the sense that you got, over the weekend with the amount of crowd that was coming and flowing into Nkandla, and even the police blockade that kind of, in the end just rescinded themselves and moved away. All of this seems to suggest that either they're taking the cautious approach and they're saying, we don't want to escalate this situation because, you saw what happened to one of the journalists in terms of how the reaction to the media as well in and around Nkandla was very hostile, and that escalation is something that you've got to be careful of. But I think at the same time, what's also a bit more disturbing is whether or not the police are able to control that situation. That in itself is also very disturbing. So apart from the fact that you had serious contravention of lockdown measures, you had serious contravention of other issues happening there with the firing of guns. I mean, you could literally see that. You also have to remember that does the police feel that they're in control? Are they feeling that by staying, away, they're basically de-escalating a situation? But come Tuesday and a decision made there, what does this mean if they have to go into Nkandla together with the police minister and say, Mr. Zuma, until the 12th, until you have that hearing on the 12th, you have to basically be in a correction facility.
And Cyril Ramaphosa and probably the majority of people in the country just want him to go away and for this Maki affair to be over. Where do you think this leaves the president, and what sort of political ramifications are we looking at, if any?
I mean, if former President Zuma is taking the mickey and holding the country ransom, well, imagine what's happening in the party. And I think that, essentially just weakens President Ramaphosa, because at the end of the day, you also had, one NEC member standing on that stage today. What does this mean going forward? Would that person be reprimanded? Do they feel that they should be reprimanded? And what will happen within the party dynamics? So I think at this point in time, it really throws the cat amongst the pigeons within the party. It creates a more than a volatile situation. It is completely, creates a situation in the party where it's no longer just about factionalism anymore. It's in complete disarray. I don't think we have enough adjectives to describe how broken this party is in the sense of where it goes from here. Whether they pull this back, I think is going to be important. But right now, I think ordinary South Africans are just feeling really let down by the fact that the apex court is now being pulled into a direction that's so unprecedented.
And those who pitched up in support of Cyril Ramaphosa, Jacob Zuma, have really outed themselves, haven't they? Sanusha, good to talk to you. Thanks very much for that.